Okay, let me show you how this is going to work for placing walls. So typically what you do is that you would go to the project browser and you would pick the floor plan that you want to add the walls to. And it's a good idea to work in the orthogonal views, either plans or elevations. So I picked on the footing level, and now what I want to do is I want to come in and put walls that go around the outside, exterior walls that go around the outside of my building here. I go back to the Home tab because that's where my walls are, where most of the building components are. If I go down here, what I want to show you is that there's different options, but unless you're doing the structural product, you're where you want to have structural walls so that you can actually analyze them. Here what we're doing is just drawing a regular architectural wall, and you see when I pick on it, if I look under the properties here, I can start with something generic, or I can pick from a number of wall types that are inside the project. These were part of the original template and they're inside the project, so I can actually go in and pick like a wall on concrete masonry unit. Now it's very easy to switch from one wall type to another. I'll show you how. If I go back to my generic 8-inch wall, something like that, and I'm just going to illustrate the principle here is that I'm going to draw clockwise around my project, and you notice that my walls clean up. If I want to go to a wall and I pick it, I can always come back at some point and say change that from being a generic 8-inch to being a exterior brick on concrete masonry unit. Right, and you see it changed the size there. Now, another important principle here in the view is when we talked about the user interface, I mentioned that down here you could choose the level of detail that you're looking at the view. So what you're looking at just now is the coarse level of detail. If I change that to medium, you'll actually see the materials that make up the brick, so make up the wall leaves, the internal structure for the wall. So again, to kind of quickly change things, if I just selected those walls here, I could come back and say change those to being exterior brick on concrete masonry unit, and now I'm actually seeing the brick and air gap insulation concrete masonry unit plaster. The other thing that I want to point out here is that if you click on a wall, you see you can flip its direction to change the I want the brick is on the outside of the building. If I do that, the brick is on the inside. Now the reason I gave you the kind of tip of drawing clockwise around the building, if this is the center of the building, is that the walls are created in such a way that you can if you draft clockwise like that, then the outside of the wall will automatically be the outside of the building. If I drew, for example, down this direction, so let me just show you. If I right click on this and say create similar, which is a quick way to draw this, and I drew coming down this way, you'll see that when I look at the actual wall, the brick is on the inside and the plaster is on the outside. And that gives you extra work where you have to go in and do things like, say, flip it over like that so that you get it the right way around. So good tip is go clockwise around the outside of your building. Second good tip is once you've got one of anything in a project, a window, a door, a wall, whatever, you can right click on it and say create similar. You don't have to go through the whole process of saying I'm drawing a wall and I'm going to select it from here. If you've already got it in the project, just right click and draft. Okay, so for example here I want the outside walls. I'm going to click and I'm going to point out some of the options on here. The options toolbar is showing me that I can choose to place the center line of the wall or other locations within the wall. Right. I'm happy with this being new construction. I'm just going to place the center line. The chain means that as soon as I place one segment like this, it lets me go on and place the next segment. So I could draw my walls just like that around the outside of my building. Let me hit the escape to get out of this, and let me drag a window and click the delete key to get rid of those. Now there's nothing wrong with these except that, and this isn't a mistake, this is a choice that you have. You see, if I pick the wall and I drag to change its location, or if I pick on the temporary dimension and I give it an exact value, it cleans up. It wasn't connected in by way of a constraint to the actual grid line. It's just a wall drawn on top of the grid line, and that may be all that you need in your project. You do not have to constrain everything in Revit. However, there is a choice. So let me just drag these off so that you can see that I can just grab those and move them away from my grid lines. There is a choice, and it's under here, my favorite Revit command, align. Align can be used to do something like line up one wall with another. Right? The option that you saw at the end of that little illustration was that there's a padlock symbol that shows up, and the padlock, if you click it, means that you are making that a constraint. In other words, the relationship where they are aligned is going to be remembered in the project. So in other words, if I pick the align tool, you pick the object that you want to stay stationary, and then you pick the object that you want to move to. And I'm zooming in a little bit on this so you can see the center line of the wall. And then when it's relocated to that, if I click on that check, so the padlock, that's me locking it onto the grid line. The other way I can do this is if I go, there's my grid, I can use the tab key while I'm over a wall to move between the different faces that are inside the wall to decide what I want to align to until I find its center line, and then lock it. Usually if you're close enough to it, it's as simple as going, there's the grid, there's my center line, lock it, there's the grid, there's the center line, and lock it. Now the reason you might want to do that is because now what you've done is you've said, you know what, if that grid, the structural grid that was to move, you see that because it was locked, the wall is now going to move with it. If I had, I'm going to unlock it, if I had not locked it, then when I made a change here, it's not going to take the wall with it. I'm doing Control Z, or I could have done undo and redo to make sure that, so that's it locked. And I'd mentioned those the benefit of having dimensions in here is that if I pick it and change that to say 12, then I can drive my model from the grid itself. So that would be the outside of our building. Next step though is, remember the properties palette, if I pick that, actually let me show you this in the next movie.